not yet an EXP agent, but man, who knows? Nonetheless, he's a great business person. He massively successful in any way that you shape, any way that you could possibly define the word success. He's a success. Family, business, life, relationships, you name it. And one of the things we were talking about yesterday, well, we were actually FaceTime. It's kind of weird, but it is what it is. And we were talking about how neither one of us get truthfully real excited about talking about buyer and seller strategies or investment strategies or things like this, kind of sort of the how-tos. And this is going to really I'm going to drive that point home here over probably the next 30 minutes. But one of the things I said to him, I said, Temp, here's the deal though. Here's what I found. I love to talk about this other stuff too, which is more like about living a whole life and having a fulfilled life. And he specifically, what I like to call optimizing for net fulfillment, not net worth. And I want to talk about all those things way more than anything else. And sometimes we got to talk about the down and the dirty details of like transactions and business and stuff like that, sort of as like the Trojan horse, so we can start to have these other conversations. So I just want to be really clear today. I'm going to get right at it. Like I'm going to go, this is going to be all about mindset because I really think that's all that matters. So unfortunately, I don't have the chance to kind of go into all of the strategies and tactics and stuff like that I would normally be teaching in a real estate class, or if we were having this conversation in person. However, I'm going to do my best to give you guys some examples, give you guys some resources, and we're going to have a lot of fun. One of the other things I'll do, and I'm sorry if you see me like look the other way, I've got a camera on one angle and my computer at the other, just sort of my home setup, which I'm not a huge fan of, but it is what it is, and we're going to work with it. One of the things I'm going to do is, as we go further today, is I'm going to ask for participation. So if you're here, if you're awake, if you're paying attention, do me a favor. When I ask for like participation, like let's do it now. Put in the chat box. Tell me where you're from. Where are you watching this from? Are you in Arizona? I know Candace is, and I am. And like, where are you at? Maybe you're in California, Florida, Texas. Let me know where you're at. And I'm going to call for more participation as we go. And I'm going to do my best to keep my eye on the chat box as well. So a little bit about me. My name is Kevin Kaufman. As Candace said, I am the co-owner of the real estate team Group 4610 or the Group 4610 network. We're based in Tempe, Arizona. I have a business partner, Fred Weaver. We have worked together now for 14 and a half years. February was 14 years. So I guess we're working on that 15th year now. So little unique like that is I've got a non-family member business partner, and we've worked together for 14 plus years. I've actually just celebrated my 15th year in real estate this past summer, I guess at the end of May. And 4 of those years have been with EXP, which have been the best 4 of the 15 by a mile. I spent my first 11 years at another company where I learned a lot, was mentored a lot. In fact, some of the stuff I'll share with you today, I learned from some of the people there. I'm also the host of a podcast, very originally titled called The Kevin and Fred Show, where I really just interview smart people. So most of the time it's practitioners in the real estate world. However, sometimes it's people outside. Like last week, I had a gentleman by the name of Bill Perkins. I used the term with you earlier, net fulfillment over net worth. He wrote a book called Die with Zero. And I was fortunate enough to have this gentleman on my podcast where we talked about that. So again, I like to use that Trojan horse of real estate tactics. And then I'm going to hit you with the good stuff that personally I like learning about. So, all right. So enough about me. Again, Kevin Kaufman, Tempe, Arizona, Group 4610, 4 years EXP. For context, we sell a few hundred homes a year on average. I can't remember the last time we didn't sell 250 homes in a year, probably almost a decade ago now. And I share that with you to go, I've learned a lot of tactics. I've learned a lot of things about building a real estate business. I got licensed in 2007. So for anybody who's like scared of this market right now, trust me, this is the biggest opportunity that you're going to have in the next decade. This next 18 months or however long it takes for this to shake out, you have the biggest opportunity that you're going to have, maybe even in your entire career. So we should be excited for it. And it's kind of scary. So that's what I'm going to hope to deal with today. So here's the go. I got 3 goals. Hopefully you'll stay awake or at least keep your stream going. Okay. That's seriously one of my goals when I'm speaking, like always. But most importantly, my biggest goal here is that you implement one thing. Like, you take one idea. I'm going to share probably 10 or 15 different ideas, and I want to be really clear. None of it is original. I'm one of those guys where I don't believe there's anything new under the sun. One of my best friends and mentors, Ben, always says R&D, rip off and duplicate. That's what I do. I'm going to rip off and duplicate things that I go, when I go to a class or I read a book or I hear a speaker, and I can take something and I go, oh, you know what? I can implement that in my life. And then the other 99% of the stuff that they say doesn't really apply to me because they're running a different race, or it just doesn't coincide with who I am as a person. So I'm going to ask you to do the same thing. Discern through the things I say, take all the notes that you want to take. Hopefully you're a note taker. And then when we're done, circle one thing. Just like have one thing that you take away and like could implement in your business like later on today. Okay. So that's my goal. My other goal is we do sell real estate. So if you got referrals in Tempe, Arizona, or anywhere in the greater Phoenix area, let us know. All right. So I'm going to start off with this. I have my business partner and I have run a team together now, as I said, since February of 2014. And we have over that time had our team at various sizes. Like, we've been as little as just the two of us and an administrative assistant, all the way up to quite literally 100 agents on the team, spread out over many states. And so one of the things that we've always been tackled with is like wanting to help our agents make more money. I mean, guys, that is the reason why. Think about this. This is the problem I was trying to solve in my real estate sales business. And this is the same problem that EXP is trying to solve for us, for 84,000 of us, right? Is why don't we make more money in real estate? When you look at the attrition rate in real estate, it's terrible. People are like, they fall like flies within the first 3 years. And so we took the time to think about this, and it came down to three things in our mind, in our thought process. Was the first reason why agents don't make more money, or the amount of money that they like to make, is leads. Like, they just don't have enough leads. Okay, well, that's one of them. The second most common reason seemed to be skills. So like, when I say skills, I think this is going to become more and more important in the next 18 months, is they don't know what to say. They don't master scripts and dialogues. They don't master how to hire if they have mastered the other things. So like, maybe if you know what to say and you've mastered your scripts and dialogues, and that doesn't mean to sound like a robot, but that's for a different class, a different day. And so you can get all the business that you could possibly handle, then you don't master the skill of hiring and leverage. Okay, so far the first two are leads and skills. The third reason, and it's most often the biggest enemy that is blocking real estate agents from having the type of success that they, quite frankly, we got into the business for, is because, listen, I think that the gentleman before me talked about like the average agent right now selling like 3 to 5 homes a year, which I think is pretty accurate. Last number I saw from NAR was like average salary of like 39,000, not salary, but income of 39,000. Like, that's pre-split, by the way. I don't think anybody decided they're going to quit their job. Well, I don't want to say anybody. I would guess that 99% of agents did not sign up for real estate to start their business for the shot of making $39,000 a year. That's just a guess. I could be wrong. Maybe there's somebody, because it's like part-time and it's like a hobby or whatever, but I don't think it is. So the number one enemy that's preventing us from getting from wherever we want to go, wherever we are, to what we want to go to in our business, I think is mindset. And so I'm going to talk today, like, this is where we're camping out. We are going to camp out on mindset. I don't care where you're at in your business, what level you're hitting a ceiling at. It's almost always mindset. It's mindset, or you're missing somebody, you're missing a person. And even then, it's like, you need to have the right mindset to be able to bring people like that in your life that'll help your business and your life get bigger. So I'm going to start off by sharing this. Excuse me. I'm going to share with you. It's actually a personal text message exchange. He's a dear friend of mine. He's also an EXP agent. His name is Dustin Runyon. If you guys don't know Dustin, he's somebody I would look up and follow. He is, man, I just love that man. I literally love him. And he's one of my best friends. And we're texting back and forth one weekend, talking about things, talking about achievement, really like talking about getting things done. And he sent me this text. He said, this is verbatim what his text message said: achievement in anything is 80% psychology, 20% mechanics. but we spend 80% of our time on mechanics and less than 20% of time on psychology. I'm going to read that back. Achievement in anything is 80% psychology, 20% mechanics, but we tend to spend 80% of our time on mechanics and less than 20% of our time on psychology. See, here's the deal. People don't need a mechanics coach. So we don't need the how-to coach, if you will. We need psychology coaches. We need to learn how to think. The gentleman before me talked about the resourcefulness factor, right? That Tony Robbins talks about. This is not about resources. This is about being resourceful. We need models. We need to learn models on how to arrange our thoughts and our emotions. That's really what it comes down to. Resourcefulness is a massive part of success, but it's not about resourcefulness. It's about learning how to activate the emotions that drive it. So then we can be resourceful, right? So it has nothing to, it's funny. He's gone back and we've talked about this many times since then, because it was about 2 years ago, he sent me this text and he's changed his numbers like any other good speaker to it's like 100% psychology and 0% mechanics. And funny enough, I totally, I would say, I guess I just don't disagree with him. And so I just think it's so important that we get our mindset right. My first real mentor in business was a gentleman by the name of Brian Clemmer, who he's passed on now. But he was my first mentor. First time I ever went to a leadership seminar, he was the speaker. He owned a great leadership company that I did a lot of work with. And one of the things he taught me, like he wrote this book, and this book is really small. Like you could probably read it on a bathroom break. Like it's pretty darn small. And I'm going to give you the title. And if you could just let the title sink in, you don't really have to read the book, but if you want to, I definitely would suggest ordering it. And you're also going to notice that I'm going to quote a lot of books here, because again, I nothing new under the sun. I take what works for other people and what I think can work for me, and I implement it. So Brian wrote a book, and the title of the book was called "If How-Tos Were Enough, We Would All Be Skinny, Rich, and Happy." I'm going to say that again. I think you should write this down. If how-tos were enough, we would all be skinny, rich, and happy. Think about that. Do we need another how-to on how to be healthy or skinny? How to be happy? Do we need more personal development books? Really? Like, go to the bookstore, like actual physical bookstore, and look how big that section is. Do we need it on how to be wise with our money? No, we really don't. We know how. The how-tos are out there. What's missing is the mindset that gets us to move. He used to also say, Mr. Clemmer used to also say to me, not just me, he said it probably to tens of thousands of people, but I like to think he was just talking to me. He used to say, when the intention is clear, the mechanism will appear. That's another way of saying when your mindset is right, the how-to will just show up. When you're clear on what you're doing, why you're doing it, the how you're doing it will show up. It doesn't have to look a certain way. It can look so many different ways. And so I just share that with you to kind of get us started, because I'm a big believer in this. And I want to talk for a moment, especially in this time, in this time of change in our marketplace, right? Where things are starting to shift. Some of us are going to be, it's going to be like being a beginner again. And some of you are a beginner. Like some of you just started out in real estate in the last year, 2 years, 3 years. By the way, even if you've been in real estate for 3 years, you're still a beginner. Unless you've already done a few hundred transactions, you're still a beginner. And I got this quote. I shared this with my group, my EXP revenue share group. We get together once a week and mastermind on actually twice a week on different topics. And one of the things that came up was this James Clear quote. If you don't know James Clear, he's an author. I'm gonna quote him a lot today. But I'm gonna read this quote to you guys. He says, "In the beginning, your skills are raw and your knowledge is sparse, and you lack experience. At best, you will be able to produce work that is just okay. And even then, you'll only manage to reach just okay while giving your best effort." I don't know if anybody else has ever felt like that, but man, especially probably in my first 18, 24 months in the real estate business, I felt like that pretty much every day. Can you relate to that? Do you ever feel like, hey, you know that your skill is raw, your knowledge probably isn't sparse, or probably is sparse unless you've, like I said, done hundreds of transactions. Like I would say there's no way to get transactional experience without, transactional experience. Like you just got to do deals to see the things that come up. And at best, you're going to be able to produce just okay work or just okay results. And here's the deal, that sucks. Nobody wants to produce something that's just okay, because you probably feel like it's beneath your standards. In fact, I know it is. If you decided, hey, I'm going to quit my job, or that's what I did. Maybe you didn't have a job before this. I'm going to quit my career and I'm going to get into real estate. I'm going to start my own business. y- you're like a highly driven person, which means you probably have standards. And when you go to do something brand new, your results tend to be lower than what your normal standard is. And that, I'm just going to be straight, I think that kind of it sucks. I hate that feeling. Maybe you're good with it, but I very much dislike that feeling of thinking that my results are below my standard. They're below what I feel is acceptable for me, right? So, but here's the punchline, if you will, of his message that I want to get across in this quote. He says, "Your great work is on the other side of your early work." I'm going to read that again. Your great work is on the other side of your early work. The only way to be exceptional later is to have the courage to just be okay right now. And this is how it is for everyone. The only way to be exceptional later on is to have the courage to be just okay right now. I'm sharing that with you because here's the deal. If you are feeling just okay or substandard or subpar in your results, especially if you're new or if you've never dealt with a market like this, that's okay. You're on the right track. I promise you. Don't stop. You have to keep moving. You got to keep moving forward. And so just know again, like if anything here, your great work is on the other side of your early work. So I think of like also EXP agents who decide they're going to build an agent attraction business alongside their sales business, right? So maybe the sales business is humming along and they're selling hundreds of deals a year, and that's great. And they can kind of run that business with their eyes closed because they've been doing it for so long. And then they decide to go start this other business called agent attraction, or maybe just literally a completely different business. And the reality is you have to go back to square one again. You got to be a beginner again. And then you got to learn to deal with that. And most people, a lot of people, when they start to be substandard to their own standards, the results start to be substandard, they'll tend to quit. And it's like that saying you probably heard, like, that's like getting a flat tire and then slashing your other three good tires. Like it's pointless. Like you got to work through it, right? We got to work through it. In a time like this, now more than ever, we've got to go small and kind of like narrow our focus. And what I mean by that, this is a concept I've read about in a book called The One Thing. It's also very much true in quite a few other books. I want to say The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy, and I'm forgetting another title right now of a book that really does a good job of emphasizing this. But like being clear on what the priority is every day is going to be more important now than it has been at any point, especially in the last 3 or 4 years when it comes to your business. So if you're going to make it through the next 18 months, the next 24 months, being really clear on what moves the needle for you is going to be so important. So like you're going to have to ignore all the things that you could be doing, and you're going to have to pay attention and put more effort on the one thing that is going to be the priority in the moment. Now in real estate sales, that's usually lead generation. I know a lot of people are like, no, it's client retention and client service and customer service. No, it's not. It's absolutely not. I learned a great saying early on in my career: never let your current business get in the way of new business. Never let your current business get in the way of new business. It does not mean to ignore them and to give bad customer service. It just means there's a priority and a pecking order, and new business goes on top. You can always hire other people and create systems to help make sure everybody else has a great experience. But new business is the priority if you want to continue to, do things like receive checks and commission closings. So go small to narrow your focus. And here's the deal: when you think about the word focus, it's like a paradox. So another quote from James Clear, who by the way, I should tell you, he wrote a book called Atomic Habits. So if you're a book reader and you want to learn about things like this, James Clear wrote a book called Atomic Habits. I cannot recommend it enough. But James says the paradox of focus: make the most of one opportunity and more opportunities will come your way. Moving boldly in one direction causes more paths to unfold before you. To get more, focus on less. To get more, focus on less. So again, we're narrowing our focus. We're identifying our priority. If you don't learn to work from a sense of priority, you're never going to make it through this market, or you're going to get through by the skin of your teeth. But here's the cool thing. The more you move, the easier it is to keep moving. Maintaining momentum is easy. It's the getting started, right? So for the person that says, "Hey, I want to lead generate for my business 2 or 3 hours a day, or I'm going to start making these certain amount of cold calls and doing this strategy or that strategy," but you're at zero today. So most people think like, "Hey, I'm going to go from zero to I'm going to make 100 calls a day." Absolutely not. You're never going to do it. Just start to make progress in that direction. Go from 0 to 10. And then once that's automatic, go from 10 to 25. And when that's automatic, go from 25 to 50, or from 30 minutes to an hour, or an hour to 2 hours, and 2 hours to 3 hours for generating business, or doing that thing, whichever is the number one priority. But having a clear sense of priority, and then using the paradox of focus in your favor is going to be the thing that not only helps you just like survive the next year or two, but actually thrive in it. There's an icon agent at our company. He's a great friend of mine, a mentor, a business partner. He's the reason we showed up to EXP. His name's Curtis Johnson. And Curtis, if you don't know Curtis, he's an amazing person. And most people don't realize this about him because he's been so prolific in the agent attraction arena. But he runs an amazing real estate sales team, and he has for over 20 years. And we were having a lunch mastermind here in the Phoenix area, probably, I think it was June. And he said, here's the amazing thing about this market and this opportunity is the passing lanes are about to get really wide. The passing lanes are about to get really wide. What he means by that is, listen, we're starting to see fewer and fewer transactions. So you're going to see people's incomes coming down. You might do more to make the same amount of money this year as you did last year, and same next year. And no one wants to hear that. But if you keep really focused on that and you're doing the best that you can, maybe you grow, maybe you don't. Let's just say you maintain. Even maintaining in a time where everyone else is going backward is propelling you forward. Real estate markets are cyclical. Like, this is not something new. This is not a surprise that things are slowing down. Things don't always go the same way forever. They go up and they go down. They go up and they go down, sometimes more drastically than others. The cool thing is when we start to see things like this, that's scaring people, like 6% interest rates and inventories piling up, people get scared. And when they get scared, they tend to not act. And so just by continuing to act and double down on what matters most in your business, you can have the opportunity to pass up most of your competition. So the passing lanes, to Curtis's credit, are about to get super, super wide. Take advantage of that, right? Take advantage of that. To emphasize more of working from a sense of priority, one thing that I like to remind myself is that everything does not matter equally. So especially in our business, or especially when you're an entrepreneur, it can feel, or if you just have a lot to do, no matter what your job is, it can feel like everything is urgent and everything is important and everything seems equal. If you're one of those people that has like a notebook and it's like a checklist every day of all the things I got to do, and I'm gonna call this person, I gotta do this. So we just check it off. We just go top to bottom. But here's the deal: not everything matters equally, and success is not a game that's won by whoever does the most. It's not. That is not how success is won. Achievers, people that are really killing it, work from a clear sense of priority. So doing the most important thing is always the most important thing. And like that can change. Like, so within a day, like let's say in the morning, the most important thing is like generating business. And then, or maybe for you, it's like taking care of my family, right? Family time in the morning. And then right after that, the most important thing I can be doing is taking care of myself. And then maybe the next important thing for the day is the business part, where it's like, cool, I've got to make my 100 phone calls or my 50 phone calls or whatever that is, right? But here's the deal. Here's what you have to get good at. Nothing else matters during those times. When it's business time, like time to make lead generation calls, or however it is that you generate business, maybe that's creating content, whatever that looks like. That's nothing else matters. Nothing gets by. It was funny, I was laughing. I was in the green room, the virtual green room prior to coming on here. And I was talking with Alex, and she's reminding me like, hey, make sure all the sounds are off. And I was like, don't you worry about me. Like notifications and sounds, like I actually 24 hours a day, my phone and my computer are always muted. I don't let them make sounds. There's enough crap going on in our world trying to steal our attention that I absolutely do not give it any excess permission or excess um, access to me. Okay. So what I mean by that is when you're lead generating, like you're not in your emails. Nothing is coming inbound. It's everything is outbound. Nothing else matters until that job is done. Just like when you're working out, like put your damn phone down, turn it off, put it, or if you're listening to something, put it on airplane mode, whatever. Same thing for lead generation. Same thing when something is the biggest priority of the day. And in business, I believe that's generating business. Nothing else matters until that's done. Like literally the rest of the world starts when you're complete. So just a heads up on that. That's my belief system. It's worked for me. We got about 5 minutes to go. And I'm going to try to share a few more thoughts with you guys here that have helped me kind of, again, in my journey. We doing okay, guys? You guys like, is this resonating for some of you? I hope so. I see a few people in the chat there. Please feel free to add more comments in there. I appreciate it. If you got any questions, a couple more quotes that I like to think about here is this. So number one, from Mark Twain, there's a quote. You don't have to write this down. If you're an EXP agent, you can message me on Workplace, and I'll get you a copy of this. It's a Mark Twain quote called "The secret of getting ahead is getting started." And the secret to getting started is breaking your complex, overwhelming tasks into manageable tasks and then starting on the first one. A simpler way of saying that is you probably heard the journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. Or I mentioned my first mentor, Brian Clemmer, earlier. One of his other books, again, title only, you could go read the 30 pages inside of it, was Eating the Elephant One Bite at a Time. Like this is just the thing. So when you find yourself in overwhelm, like just know you just got to start, you got to get moving, right? Like don't worry about the strategy and all that stuff later. Just get moving. That's so important. There's another book that I'm sure many of you have read or at least heard of called The One Thing. I referenced it earlier. This quote that I love from it says, "In the world of no instructions, the focusing question becomes a simple formula for finding exceptional answers that lead to extraordinary results." I'm going to read that again. In a world of no instructions, the focusing question becomes the simple formula for finding exceptional answers that lead to extraordinary results. So what's that question? Here's the question I use. It's from James Clear. Now, in The One Thing, there's a different question, and it's a great question. I just think this one's better. For me, this one resonates with me better. I ask myself this constantly, like pretty much daily. Not perfect by any means. But James says this: if I keep doing what I'm about to do today, and I will change that to for the next hour, for the next 3 hours. But if I keep doing what I'm about to do today for the next 5 years, will I end up with more of what I want or less of what I want? I'm going to say that again. If I keep doing what I'm about to do today for the next 5 years, will I end up with more of what I want or less of what I want? Now, if you can answer that question for yourself daily, like that's a GPS. Like, you know what GPSs are? I don't know if I'm sure you guys have had Rick Jiha on here before. If not, Rick Jiha is an amazing speaker and trainer, EXP agent, dear friend of mine. He taught me, wow, this must have been about 2011, 2012, about GPSs and how they're just designed to make these little shifts, right? To keep you on course, like when you're in a ship in the middle of the ocean. And so it's just these little reminders, like everyone gets a little off course. We get a little, but if we use this question and other things as like a GPS for us and where we're going, it'll help keep us on course. And so I love that. If I keep doing what I'm about to do today for the next 5 years, will I get more of what I want or less of what I want? And here's the cool thing. You can use this question for your business, like we're talking about today. You can use it for your personal finances, for your relationship with your friends, relationship with your families, relationship with your spouse or significant other, relationship for fun. Yeah, that's right. I said your relationship with fun. That's another thing I learned from my buddy Dustin that we're not going to be able to get into today. And your relationship with health. And of course, fill in the blank, so many other things. But here's what I know, guys. I got about 1 minute left. Putting together a life of extraordinary results simply comes down to getting the most out of what you do when what you do matters. Meaning this, when you're on the clock, I like to think of me when I'm at work, I think of it as like my job. I might be the boss or the owner of my business, but I have a job or jobs in it that when I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, when I'm on work time, this simply comes down to getting the most out of what I do in that time frame. So if I have an hour to lead generate, what can I extract from that hour? How much energy and life can I pull out of that hour? Like that's plain and simple. Last two things, no one succeeds alone. Keep coming back to classes like this. By the way, going back to that first quote I shared about success being 80% psychological, 100%. So don't be a lone wolf. If you work alone, if you work from home and you're not around people, then you got to be listening to things all the time. One of my hacks that I like to do is if I know I'm struggling with something, whether that has to do with, it could be a business thing, a personal thing, a finance thing, a health, wealth, relationship, whatever, I will then go even re-listen to books and podcasts I've already listened to about that subject to make sure my mindset is right. And that's it, guys. I'm out of time today, so I don't know if Candace, if we're ready to go, but on my clock it says we're right on the hour.
You are so great, Kevin. Thank you so much for really hitting it on the head. Mindset to mission. Folks, I hope you took notes in that session as well. I can tell you that when I first got licensed, that two of the people that I listened to all the time were Kevin Kaufman and his amazing partner, Fred Weaver. So, Kevin, it was so great to see you here. Thank you so much for bringing that fire. And folks, coming up next, as promised, something that we have never done here in Level Up, we're going to go live